This is Radio TV Phono Nut, and we have a 23-inch Philco black and white television from probably the mid-60s. I picked this up at the flea market, and unfortunately it's not in the best of shape, but it seems like old TVs are very hard to find. You know, radios, record players, other types of vintage electronics show up fairly often, but TVs just don't show up that much. And as you can tell, the finish is really crummy on this set, and it's even got some cabinet damage here that we'll have to fix. I'm not really a fan of painting furniture. In fact, I detest the flea market vendors that do that. But when you have a cabinet like this, it was a cheap photo finish cabinet to begin with, and when it's damaged this way, about all you can do is sand it down and repaint it. But I think I can probably do a nicer job than what some of these flea market vendors do. But anyway, we won't worry about that now. We'll worry about getting the set working first. I don't know exactly how old this is yet, but it has UHF that looks to be factory installed, so that makes it after, I believe it was April 1963 when TVs had to have UHF tuners, and it simply says Philco and not Philco Ford. I think they added the Ford logo sometime around 66. So I'd say this set's probably from about 64 or 5, somewhere in there. I saw a picture of it when the guy at the flea market sent me a picture of the set, and they had it turned on, and it had a raster with vertical fold over at the bottom, but I still want to test the CRT, because just because it lights up, that doesn't mean it has strong emission. And I don't want to fool with something that's going to make a lousy picture or whatever. Here's the back cover that's also dirty and dingy, and someone's ripped out the antenna terminals, so we'll have to replace those. So let's remove the back and see what we have. I can tell by how loose these screws are that somebody's had this back off many times for whatever reason. Okay, here's the inside. It's an all-tube chassis, series string, no power transformer. Very filthy on the inside. It looks like this set was stored in a barn somewhere. Here's the label off of the picture tube. It's a 23 GWP4. Looks like a 66 date code there, so we'll assume this set was made in 66. EIA code 260, that'll indicate who made the tube. I'm not sure who 260 corresponds to. They might have made this tube in-house. Alright, let's get the Syncore on it and see how it tests. Here's our filament set. HK shorts, G1 shorts, cut off. Let's see, we have cut off. That's good. Now emission. Not the best in the world, but certainly not the worst. We'll let it sit a while and see if we can get it out of the upper end of that bad scale without having to actually rejuvenate it. There's no telling how many years it's been since the set's been used regularly. Okay, we've been sitting about 20 minutes, and this is about the best I can get out of it. Just for the heck of it, let me push the life test button, and we know it's probably going to plummet. Well, actually, much to my surprise, it's staying up. Okay, I set the filament down to 5 volts, and it's still just a little bit lower than what it was, which is very weird, because usually when a tube tests in any part of the bad scale, the life test is usually not good at all, but this one's staying up there. I could rejuvenate it and try to get it higher, but I don't think I'm going to try that, even though this particular tester has a gentle rejuvenate function. The life test seems to be good, and I've seen these black and white tubes actually produce a decent picture when they tested in the upper bad portion. So right now we're just going to leave it alone. Now let me just say, when you obtain an old TV, the first thing you really want to do is test the CRT, because if the CRT is bad, then you're probably going to have a problem, because to my knowledge nobody in the United States is rebuilding them anymore. One of the vintage TV groups is working on rebuilding certain CRTs, but that's probably going to be a long way in the future if it ever happens. In fact, the other day I was talking to a gentleman who was given a 1950s Dumont TV back in the 80s, and whoever gave it to him told him that the picture tube was bad, and he asked me, was there anything that could be done about that? And I said, well, nobody's rebuilding them anymore. And he wasn't even aware that there were no more CRT rebuilders left. I think he said he checked on having it rebuilt back in the 80s or 90s, and it was something like $80-something back then. I said, well, you probably should have gone ahead and had it rebuilt back then. But anyway, if you're considering buying an old TV, and if they want more than a few bucks for it, you'd best take your CRT tester with you and ask for permission to test the tube first, and if they won't give you permission, then walk away from it. Once you determine the picture tube is good, you should eyeball the chassis and make sure there's nothing obviously burned up or destroyed. In this case, I'm looking at the yoke and the Flyback Transformer. Thank goodness this yoke is made out of a different kind of plastic than that old black crap that they used in the 50s and early 60s. It would literally disintegrate and cause the yoke not to stay attached to the neck of the picture tube. And looking at our Flyback, it looks to be in good shape. It doesn't look to be burned up or anything. So I think we can proceed with this. Alright, let's give it some juice and see what happens. I see vacuum bulb illumination. I hear sounds from the speaker. Snow on the screen. Ooh, it's nice. Yeah, this thing looks to be bright. Turn the vertical hole, and that filled our raster out. May not be very much wrong with this set. Okay, we have the converter box connected. Let's give this a shot. Let it warm up here. That's channel 11. We have some audio. Let's see about the fine tuning. Okay, horizontal's out of sync. And we're working to some degree. Nice.
why do you think the relationships haven't worked out?
Well, Steve, I have no problem meeting him. I go about once every 2 months, but then I'll meet him and he's too busy for me, and when I did finally make time for me, he would fall asleep on me when we spend time together. Or I made a dot. He was perfect on paper. Then he would.
It's a hilarious and very, very smart Tyler Perry. We both share a deep appreciation for the...
Newsflash, because all babies should be handled with care.
You're the only reason I keep coming
Well, it's obviously going to need a little work done on it, but this is not a bad start at all. And of course, we'll get to that work later when we have more time to work on this, but I'm impressed so far.
We only have sex when I initiate it. I mean, it's still 5 or 6 times a week, but some girl likes to be...
Well, if we can just keep growing at this rate, pretty soon
brightness.
every child in the township property.
A contrast.
How big Mrs. Olson's plaque will be.
Not as big as
Contrast knob appears to be kind of stuck.
I think I was falling asleep.
Where's that husband of yours?
That's me. Pick up the phone and say, hey, I'm dealing with this. Have you ever... Oh, she said, oh, yeah.
Hadn't heard the music, you just saw a billboard and you just were drawn to it from...
Kind of get an idea about what daytime TV amounts to.
More fun and games Monday on ABC.
About the only channel worth watching is this cozy TV that shows all the old stuff. I think this is Little House on the Prairie. I can remember whenever I was a kid, afternoon TV consisted of mainly cartoons and reruns of old TV shows. Now it's Judge Bimbo and Ellen and all of the various baby daddy shows. This is the Trinity Broadcasting Network here that's trying to pop in, but that station's about 100 miles away, I think.
Okay. So, and that's...
Okay, there you go. One day when I have time, we'll get back on this and do a little minor adjustment and service and clean up, and this set ought to be good to go. Okay, a couple of things right off the bat that will need to be addressed when we get back on this is the sound has gone out, or almost gone out. I'm getting static when I turn the volume control, but there's very little audio at the speaker. When I change to a dead channel, there's not much audio either. Wait, well, it's trying to come back now.
The people like to fry up.
So that may be just a dirty tuner causing all of that. Or an alignment issue. I've noticed our vertical hold is all the way at the end of its rotation to get it to lock. It should lock somewhere in the center, so that will have to be addressed. Okay, well that's it for now, and we'll get back on this later when we get caught up with some other things.